The battlefield's last breath smoke moved over the ruined city like a slow black tide. The ground shook with each distant explosion. Metal towers, once tall and proud, now stood like broken teeth in the mouth of the world. Korran stood in the middle of it all. His tall frame, wrapped in cracked alien armor, was covered in deep cuts. Strange blue blood dripped down his arm, steaming where it touched the hot ground. The enemy's fire had found him again and again, but still he did not fall dot around him. The war was almost over, and it was not ending well for the humans. Their gunfire grew weaker. Their shouts turned into screams. The alien warships above were closing in like vultures circling their meal. Korran could hear the voices in his helmet, the sharp commands of his own people. Advance. Kill the survivors. Leave nothing alive. He ignored them dot in his hand. He held something far more dangerous than any weapon. It was a crystal core, the size of a human heart, glowing softly with a pulse like a living thing. Each beat sent a faint hum into the air. To most, it looked like nothing more than a strange piece of alien technology. But Korran knew the truth. This small thing could end the war, or end the planet. His breath came heavy now. Every step felt harder. His body told him to stop, to rest, but his mind kept pushing forward. He could not stop. Not now. Overhead, the sky tore open with another blast from an alien cannon. A whole street of human fighters vanished into dust. Korran did not flinch. Death was everywhere here. The smell of it clung to the air. He looked toward the far end of the street. To the fire and smoke, he could see them, the last group of human defenders. They fought like cornered wolves, desperate, hopeless. Their armor was dented, their faces streaked with dirt and blood. They had no idea who he was. They would see only the enemy in him. And maybe they were right. The crystal pulsed again in his hand. It felt heavier now, as if it knew its time was near. Korran tightened his grip. The narrator's voice, if one were telling this story, would have spoken the truth. Korran had never feared death until now. Not because he wanted to live, but because if he died before this was done, Earth would burn. He remembered the moment everything changed. Only a few days ago, he had been one of the proud warriors of the Zarthal Empire, sworn to crush humanity and claim Earth. He had believed the war was a test of strength, nothing more. But then he had overheard the Council's true plan, to poison the planet itself, to make it unlivable for any life, alien or human. The humans would die. The animals would die. The oceans would turn black dot, and Korran, for reasons he could not fully explain even to himself, could not let that happen. Now, here he was, a traitor to his own people, clutching the one thing that could stop their weapon. But stopping it meant getting this crystal inside the alien mothership. And there were thousands of soldiers between him, and that ship got another explosion shook the ground. A wall collapsed beside him, showering him with dust and fire. He did not move. His gaze stayed locked on the humans ahead. He would need their help. He could not reach the ship alone, but how could he make them believe him? From the humans' view, he was a monster, taller than any man, with burning yellow eyes and armor carved in the shape of fangs. His people had burned their cities and slaughtered their families. If he walked toward them, they would shoot him on sight. Still, he took a step forward. Then another. The ground crunched under his heavy boots. In the smoke ahead, one human noticed him. A soldier with a scar running across his cheek lifted his rifle, shouting something Korran could not hear over the roar of battle. Others turned to aim their weapons at him. The crystal's glow painted his fingers blue. In his helmet, the voices of his commanders returned, sharper now. Korran, report your position. Why are you moving toward the humans? He cut the channel off. Closer. Now, He could see the fear in their eyes. He could also see the same thing he had once seen in his own soldiers. The look of warriors who know they will not survive the day. A human shell exploded to his right, throwing him sideways. His armor sparked. The crystal slipped in his grip, and for a single terrible moment, he thought it might shatter. He caught it, holding it tight against his chest. When he looked up again, the humans were still aiming at him. He stopped, standing tall in the middle of the street, fire and smoke curling around him. Slowly, he raised his empty hand, showing he held no weapon. Then he opened his other hand, letting the crystal's light spill into the air. The humans hesitated. They didn't know it yet, but the future of their world rested in the hands of the very enemy they feared most. And if Korran failed in the next few hours, Earth would see no more sunrises. The betrayal. The night before the battlefield, Korran had been aboard the Zarfel command vessel, the pride of the alien fleet. It hung in orbit like a silver predator, its massive claws pointed toward Earth. Inside its cold metal halls, Korran had walked with the calm of a loyal warrior. Every step echoed against the walls. He passed squads of soldiers who saluted him, unaware that he was already carrying a seed of treason in his mind. The War Council chamber was guarded by 2 elite sentinels. Their armor shimmered with the red crest of the High Command. No one entered without permission. Korran hadn't planned to, but fate didn't ask for his plan. He was just passing the chamber doors when the metal hissed open. A young officer stepped out, pale and shaken, carrying a stack of glowing data slates. The officer didn't notice Korran. He moved fast, almost running, and then the doors began to close. Korran's hand shot out. He caught the edge before it. Sealed shut. The cool hum of the council's voices spilled into the corridor. He knew he shouldn't, but something in their tone made him push the door open just enough to listen. When the weapon fires, one of the generals was saying, "There will be no survivors, not even the plants. The humans will die screaming in the black air." Korran frowned. That much he had expected. They were at war. But then came the words that changed everything. The planet itself will rot. Oceans will boil. The ground will turn to ash. In 10 cycles, nothing will remain but dust, ready for us to build anew. Another voice laughed. And if the humans surrender? Then they die faster. Korran froze. His chest felt tight. This was not war. This was slaughter beyond the enemy. This was killing a world. He had been taught that the Zarthil were honorable, that they fought strong opponents, took victory, and left survivors to tell the tale. Destroying an entire planet was not honor. It was fear. Fear of humans rising again. Fear of any rival. He leaned closer. "And the crystal core is already in place," said the warlord. "Once charged, no force can stop the ignition." The crystal. He had seen it in the armory, pulsing like a living heart inside a black cage. Now he understood. It wasn't just a power source. It was the trigger to kill an entire world. The council laughed again, the sound cold and sharp. In that moment, Korran's loyalty died. He stepped back from the door, his mind a storm. If this weapon fired, Earth would be gone forever. Not just the humans, but the forests, the oceans, the sky itself. Something deep in him refused to let that happen. Maybe it was respect for the humans' courage. Maybe it was the memory of one human medic who had spared his life years ago in a skirmish. Or maybe it was something older, a part of him that could not kill the innocent. That night, Korran entered the armory. The guards at the door nodded to him. He was a decorated warrior. No one questioned his presence. He walked inside, every step slow, controlled. His armor's shadow moved like a predator across the walls. The crystal core floated in its cage of black steel. Up close, it was more. beautiful than he remembered. Blue light curled inside it like smoke caught in glass. It hummed softly, almost like a whisper. He touched the controls. The cage opened with a soft hiss. The crystal's glow spilled across his hands, staining them in cold light. For the first time in his life, Korran felt fear, not for himself, but for what this thing could do. He lifted it from its cradle. It was warm, almost alive. The hum grew louder, and for a moment he thought he could feel his heartbeat. Alarms did not sound. No guard stopped him. The Zarthel trusted him completely. That trust would be their undoing. Korran left the armory and made for the hangar. His plan was simple: hide the crystal, get to the surface, and somehow find a way to destroy it before the weapon could fire. Simple, except for the fact that every soldier in the fleet would kill him if they knew. He reached his dropship, stepped inside, and launched toward Earth. As the black of space gave way to the blue curve of the planet, he looked down at the world he had been sent to burn, and for the first time, he felt something dangerous grow inside him. Hope. The human captain. The humans saw him before he saw them. Through the thick smoke, 3 rifles rose in unison, their red laser sights pinning him in the chest. The nearest soldier, a lean man with a blood-stained bandana, didn't shout a warning. He simply whispered into his comms. Target sighted. Alien. Heavy armor. Korran stopped moving. His every instinct screamed to fight, to lunge forward. But he forced himself still. The crystal core glowed faintly in his left hand, half hidden behind his armor plate dot. Then a voice cut through the chaos. Firm. Female. Commanding. Hold fire. The humans shifted, but their weapons stayed aimed. From behind them, a tall figure stepped forward. She wore black and gray combat armor, battered by shrapnel and streaked with ash. A silver rank badge glinted on her chest. Captain Rain. Korran had heard the name whispered even among his people, a human leader who had held the city for months against impossible odds. He had not expected to meet her alive. Rain stopped a few paces away, her eyes locked on his faceplate. She didn't look afraid. She looked like someone already deciding the best place to shoot him. Take off the helmet, she said. Korran didn't move. Removing it would make him slower, vulnerable. But she didn't repeat the order. She just tilted her rifle slightly higher, aiming at the gap in his armor at the neck. Slowly, he unsealed the helmet. Steen hissed out. His alien features came into view: sharp jawline, ridged forehead, and those piercing yellow eyes that glowed even in the dark. The soldiers behind her tensed. One cursed under his breath. Rain studied him for a long moment. Then, with calm precision, she said, "You've got 10 seconds to tell me why you're walking toward my people instead of cutting them down. After that, I'll paint the street with your blue blood." Korran glanced at the crystal in his hand. He could feel its hum, faster now, almost urgent. He stepped forward once, and the soldiers' rifles clicked as they tightened their grips. "I have something your world needs," he said. His voice was low, rough, but each word in their language was sharp and clear. Rain's eyes narrowed. "Your kind has been burning my cities for months. What could you possibly have that we'd want?" Korran slowly opened his hand. The crystals. Blue light spilled into the smoke. It cast strange shadows on their faces. The soldiers flinched, not from fear, but from recognition. Even the humans had heard the rumors. A weapon core stolen from the alien fleet. "This," Korran said, "is the heart of the weapon that will kill your planet." Silence followed. Somewhere far off, artillery thundered, but here no one moved. Rain broke the silence first. "And why do you have it?" "Because," Korran said, "I am not here to kill humans. I am here to save them." The soldiers laughed. Short, bitter laughs. Rain didn't. Instead, she asked the question that mattered. "Why should I trust you?" He looked her straight in the eyes. "You shouldn't. But if you kill me, this crystal never reaches the weapon chamber. And when that happens—" He looked toward the sky, where the alien mothership loomed through the smoke. "Your oceans will boil before you see another sunrise." The hum of the crystal seemed to fill the space between them. Rain's fingers stayed on the trigger. Her mind was a battlefield of its own. She had lost too many people to alien lies. But she could also see it in his stance, in the weight of his voice. This was no bluff. Finally, she lowered her rifle, just slightly. "What's your name?" she asked. "Korran," he replied. She nodded once. "All right, Korran. You've got one chance. If this is a trick, you die first." He didn't smile, but there was a flicker in his eyes. Relief, maybe, or determination. "Then we move now," Korran said, turning toward the burning streets. "Because the clock is already against us." And with that, the most unlikely alliance of the war began between the last human captain of the city and the alien warrior who might be its only hope. Asterisk the impossible plan. They crouched in the ruins of an old subway station, the ground trembling every few seconds as alien artillery pounded the city above. A flickering lantern cast just enough light to reveal Captain Rain's map, a cracked digital screen held together with tape. She traced a route with her finger, her voice low but sharp. "We get the crystal to the mothership before dawn. We put it inside their main weapon. We make sure it never fires. That's the plan." "That's suicide," one of her soldiers said. A heavy-set man with grease on his armor, he spat into the dust. "That alien can't be trusted. How do we know he doesn't walk us right into a trap?" Korran said nothing. He stood at the edge of the light, watching the map. He could already see a flaw in their route. The alien patrol lines had shifted since the humans last scouted. The moment they stepped above ground, they would be walking into a kill zone. Rain noticed his stare. "Problem?" "Yes," Korran said. "Your path is dead before it begins. The trolls moved here and here." He pointed at 2 intersections. "They'll see you in under 2 minutes." The grease-armored soldier snarled. "Or maybe you just want to scare us so we follow your path instead." Rain didn't look away from Korran. "What do you suggest?" Korran stepped closer, his shadow stretching over the map. "There's a maintenance tunnel, alien supply route. We can use it to reach the base of the mothership without being seen. But it's not unguarded." "How guarded?" Rain asked. Korran met her eyes. "Enough that if one of us hesitates, the rest die." A long silence followed. The grease-armored soldier shifted uncomfortably. Rain looked at her team, tired, battered, running on nothing but adrenaline and stubborn willpower. Finally, she nodded. "We take your tunnel." They moved quickly. A city above was a graveyard of metal and flame, the air thick with the smell of burning fuel and blood. They moved like shadows, Korran leading, the humans close behind. But even in the darkness, he could feel their eyes on his back. It wasn't just suspicion. It was hatred, sharp and personal. These humans have lost friends, family, whole neighborhoods, to warriors who looked exactly like him. He could hear their quiet mutters behind him. "Monster, liar, watch his hands." The entrance to the maintenance tunnel was a jagged hole in the street, half hidden by rubble. Korran dropped down first, landing silently in ankle-deep water. The others followed, one by one. The tunnel was long, low, and suffocating. Alien supply crates lined the walls, each marked with warning sigils. Every few minutes, a deep mechanical thud echoed from somewhere ahead, the sound of the mothership's weapon charging. Rain's voice came softly from behind him. How long before it fires? Korran didn't look back. Hours, maybe less. They pressed on. The deeper they went, the more the air smelled like hot metal and ozone. Shadows flickered against the walls. Not theirs. Korran raised a hand. Everyone froze. From the far end of the tunnel, alien soldiers appeared, 4 of them, moving in a tight patrol. Their armor shimmered with the same red crest Korran had once worn with pride. He signaled for silence. His mind raced. Fighting. Here would be loud, messy. But letting them pass risked being spotted. The grease-armored soldier leaned close to Rain, whispering too loudly. If he's really on our side, let's see him prove it. Rain's hand twitched toward her weapon, not at Korran, but to shut the soldier up. Korran didn't wait. In a blur of motion, he was gone from their line of sight. The humans heard only the hiss of steel and a wet, heavy sound. When he returned, he was alone again. His armor dripped alien blood, darker than his own. They won't report back, he said, voice steady. The grease-armored soldier stared at him, silent now. They kept moving, the hum of the mothership growing louder with every step. The walls began to shake. The light from the crystal pulsed in Korran's grip, faster, as if it sensed its destination. But even as they drew closer, Korran knew the greatest danger wasn't the guards ahead. It was whether these humans would still choose to trust him. When the final moment came, and in his gut he felt something worse, the quiet certainty that at least one of them wouldn't. Asterisk. The last stand, the tunnel narrowed until the humans had to move in single file. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow, heavy drops. Every sound, every boot step, every breath seemed too loud. They were close now. The hum of the alien weapon was no longer a distant vibration. It was a living presence, a heartbeat that shook the walls. Korran led the way, his hand tight around the crystal. He could feel it reacting to the weapon's energy, the glow brighter now, almost urgent, like it knew it was approaching its final purpose. Behind him, Captain Rain kept pace, her eyes darting left and right. The rest of her squad followed, their faces pale, weapons ready. And then the hum stopped. The sudden silence hit them like a shockwave. Everyone froze. Even the air felt heavier. Korran's head tilted, listening. That wasn't good. The only time the weapon stopped charging was right before a major system shift, which meant someone had noticed the missing crystal. From ahead, a thin blue light cut through the darkness, a scanning beam. It swept across the tunnel like a searching eye. Back! Rain hissed. Two. Late. The beam caught them, freezing for a fraction of a second before the walls erupted in sound. A metallic roar, followed by a hail of plasma bolts that turned the tunnel into a killing zone. Korran didn't think. He moved. He grabbed Rain by the chest plate and shoved her hard into the wall, just as a bolt tore through the space where she'd been standing. His own shoulder took the hit, armor burning, flesh sizzling beneath. Asterisk. The enemy soldiers poured in from hidden side passages. Not 4, not 8, but dozens. The air filled with blinding flashes and the sharp stench of scorched metal. Korran, Rain shouted. He ignored her. His plasma rifle was already in his free hand, firing with precision. Every shot dropped an alien soldier, but for everyone, he killed. 2 more stepped into the tunnel. The humans returned fire, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy armor. We're pinned, one of the soldiers yelled. Korran knew. He also knew the truth. If they stayed here, they were dead. He slammed his rifle onto his back, drew his blade, and charged. The narrow tunnel became a blur of motion. Korran moving faster than the humans could track. His blade cutting through armor, his body taking blows meant for them. Plasma bolts tore chunks from his armor, one searing across his ribs, another grazing his jaw. Blue blood poured down his neck. Rain's voice cut through the chaos. "We need a path." Korran roared, a deep, alien sound that shook the walls, and hurled himself into the thickest part of the enemy line. His blade flashed once, twice, 3 times, each strike opening space for the humans to move. "Go!" he bellowed, shoving a dying soldier into the wall to block enemy fire. Humans didn't hesitate. Rain grabbed the grease-armored soldier and dragged him forward, the rest following. Korran stayed behind, holding the line. Every step the humans gained was bought with another wound on his body. His armor smoked, cracked, and split under the relentless fire. A plasma bolt hit him square in the chest, lifting him off his feet and slamming him into the wall. He coughed, blue blood spilling from his mouth. But when the next soldier came at him, he drove his blade through the attacker's throat and pulled himself upright again. He could barely see now. His vision swam. But he could hear them. The humans still moving, still alive. That was enough. A voice came through his helmet's comm, a familiar one. An alien officer. "Korran, traitor, do you think they'll thank you? Do you think they'll let you live?" He cut the channel without answering. A final burst of fire from his blade cleared the path entirely. The humans were through the choke point, disappearing into the final stretch toward the mothership's core. Rain looked back once. Korran stood in the smoke, blood pouring down his armor, facing a fresh wave of enemy soldiers alone. He didn't wave. He didn't call out. He just turned his head slightly, as if to say "run dot," then the tunnel collapsed between them. Asterisk the choice, the blast from the tunnel collapse still rang in Rain's ears. Dust and smoke swirled in the narrow chamber as she and the surviving soldiers stumbled into the mothership's inner core dot. It was like stepping inside the heart of a living machine. Pillars of black metal pulsed with blue light, and the air shimmered with heat. At the center stood the alien weapon, a massive column of armor and cables, its tip reaching into the darkness above. At its base, a socket waited, perfectly shaped for the crystal in Korran's hand. Except Korran wasn't there. Rain turned toward the blocked tunnel, her chest tight. "He'd been right behind them minutes ago. He's gone," one soldier said. "Didn't make it." Before she could respond, a figure emerged from the dust. Korran stumbled forward, armor split and smoking, blue blood streaming from half dozen wounds. One leg dragged slightly, but his grip on the crystal was unshaken. The soldiers raised their rifles on instinct. Rain's voice cut through. "Lower them, now." Korran moved toward the weapon chamber without looking at anyone. Every step was heavy, but there was no hesitation. "How do we shut it down?" Rain demanded. "You don't," he said without turning. "I do." Rain followed him, her boots clanging on the metal floor. "Then tell me how." He stopped at the base of the weapon, his back to her. "If I place the crystal in the socket, the weapon will overload. It will destroy itself before it fires." "Good," Rain said. "Then it will. Also destroy everything in this chamber." Silence. The hum of the weapon deepened, vibrating in their bones. Somewhere in the mothership, sirens began to wail. Rain's eyes narrowed. "You can't be serious. There has to be another way." Korran turned to face her. His breathing was ragged, his eyes dim but steady. "There is no other way. The overload will spread through my armor. I will not survive it." The grease-armored soldier spoke from the back. "So what? Let him do it. He's the enemy." Rain shot him a look that made him fall silent. She turned back to Korran. "You don't have to do this." "We can." "No," Korran said, his voice low but cutting through the alarms. "If I hesitate, your world burns." The weapon's power reading spiked. Streams of blue light raced up the walls like veins filling with fire. 30 seconds, Korran murmured, almost to himself. Rain stepped closer. Why? Why would you die for us? Korran looked at her for a long moment. Because once. A human spared me when I would not have spared them. I didn't understand then. I do now. He reached for the control panel. Rain's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. Korran, but his other hand moved faster. He slammed the crystal into the socket. The reaction was instant. The chamber roared with energy, every surface glowing white-hot. Sparks erupted from the walls, the air burning their skin. A blast door began to close between them. Korran shoved Rain backward through the threshold, locking eyes with her one last time. Protect your people, human. And remember, not all enemies are your enemies. The door slammed shut, cutting him off. Through the thick glass, she saw him turn back to the weapon. His armor flared with light as the overload spread into his body. He stood tall, even as his frame shook under the force. Then the light consumed everything. The shockwave tore through the chamber, rattling the walls, and the alarms went silent. The weapon was gone. So was Korran. Rain stood there, fists clenched, staring at the empty socket where the crystal had been, and the scorch mark where an alien warrior had made his final stand. Asterisk salvation. The mothership's death was not quiet. From the ground, it began as a low rumble in the sky, like a storm forming where no clouds should be. People in the shattered city streets looked up through the smoke, shielding their eyes as the great alien vessel seemed to shudder. Then the light came, a white-blue. Flash burst from its core, tearing outward in a perfect sphere. For a heartbeat, the mothership glowed brighter than the sun. Then it fractured, plates of black armor snapping away, tumbling through the air like dying leaves. In its final moments, the alien flagship screamed. A sound so deep and alien it rattled glass miles away, and faded into silence as the wreck began its slow fall toward the ocean. On the ground, Rain and her soldiers stood in the blast shadow of the inner chamber's remains. The heat was fading now, leaving only scorched metal and the sharp scent of ozone. Rain's ears still rang. Her vision swam. But she kept her eyes on the sealed blast door, where Korran had made his last stand. No movement. No voice. Nothing. One of her soldiers stepped closer. Captain, we need to move. That thing's coming down hard. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached out and pressed her palm to the scorched metal. It was still warm, as if holding the last heartbeat of the warrior who had died there. A roar cut through the air above. Not alien fire, human jets. Rain turned to see the first wave of Earth's own aircraft streaking overhead, chasing down fleeing alien vessels. The enemy fleet was breaking apart, its command destroyed. The war, for the first time in months, was no longer hopeless. And yet, the weight in her chest only grew heavier as they made their way out of the burning core. Every human they passed looked at them in disbelief. Survivors emerged from hiding, wounded, limping, but alive. Some cried. Some simply stared at the sky, where the mothership's wreck burned a trail into the seal. Horizon by the time they reached the street, dawn had broken. The rising sun painted the ruins gold, as if the city itself had survived the night out of sheer stubbornness. Rain stopped. The sea wind carried the sound of the mothership's final impact far away. A distant, echoing crash. It was over. One soldier clapped her on the shoulder. We did it, Captain. Rain shook her head. No, he did it. From a pouch at her side, she pulled a small shard of the crystal. It was all that remained after the overload, a single fragment, cool to the touch, glowing faintly in her palm. She closed her fist around it. His name was Korran, she said quietly. No one replied. The war would never put that name in the records. No one outside this squad would ever know the truth, but she would. She slipped the shard back into her armor. Someday, maybe, she'd tell the story of the alien who saved Earth. But for now, it was hers to keep, a secret memory, burning bright in the quiet. After the war. As the sun climbed higher, rain turned away from the wreckage. Were still battles to fight, still people to save. And somewhere in her mind, she thought she could almost hear him again, that rough, unshakable voice. Protect your people, human. She smiled faintly, just once, and then she walked on, leading her soldiers into the new day.